Hello everyone and welcome to my next tutorial on Designaknit 8. Today we're going to talk about printing the pattern shaping instructions for our garment. So we're not going to talk about stitch pattern today, we're going to go back to our original pattern drafting and we're going to talk about how we can print out our information to make our garments. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to click File, Print to open the print dialog box. I haven't made any changes and this always comes up, so I'm going to click No. And what this has done is it's opened our print dialog box. So on this side of the dialog box we have our garment pieces that we want to print. So you can print them individually or you can do them all together. So you just click in the selection box what ones you want to print. Today I'm not going to print them all, I'm only going to do the front because otherwise it would be time consuming for our tutorial purposes. Okay. So over here we've got our available formats box. Now each one of these formats is a different method of printing what you want to know. So shaping as X's we'll be doing first, and what that does is it shows us how to shape using X's in the diagram as stitches. Text summary will give us our garment size and our welt instructions and how much yarn is going to be used if we use standard pattern drafting. Normally we don't use this text summary with original pattern drafting. Next we've got knit leader, which means you can print out a real size template for your knit leader on your Singer machines, so you don't actually have to trace it out again or whatever, or work from the pattern. You can just print it out, sticky tape it together and stick it straight in the knit leader if you know how to use the knit leader. Same goes for the knit radius. Garment outline will just print an outline of your garment, so what your garment looks like. Garment notation is the Japanese way of doing garment shaping. We will work through this in a later tutorial, not this one, we'll touch on it briefly today, but we're going to go through that in its own dedicated tutorial. I like to use garment notation, it's very fast and easy to remember. We've got garment text, which will give us text instructions like a hand knitting pattern. So knit one row, on the next row increase one at beginning and one end, that sort of thing. If you're a hand knitter you'll know all about that. Key to symbols will give you a key of the symbols if you're using symbols for stitch pattern. We're not going to use that one very often. I never use it, but I've been in there to play with it. Yarn calculation means that we can knit a swatch, put the swatch into the computer, and Designaknit will roughly estimate how much yarn we're going to use for that garment. Garment picture will print a picture of the garment and stitch pattern for you to see the garment basically. Remember, if you used original pattern drafting, it's going to only show the individual pieces, it won't show them assembled. Garment symbols is the same thing, using symbols, well, I don't use that. Integrated changes, to be honest, I really don't know what this does. I've never needed to use it, but later on I will go through and learn about it and make a tutorial about it if I need to, but I never use it, so... okay, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to have a look at this shaping as X's. So we're going to click Next. And what we've got here is our page setup dialog. So we can choose our page size. We've got A4, A3, US letter, or other millimeters. This other millimeters here is really good if you're using a wide format plotter. A lot of people use a plotter cutter to cut out their sewing patterns. You can do the exact same with this, and what it will do is it'll print the garment real size, and you'll be able to stick the garment straight in the knit radar or knit leader without cutting it out. Here is your page margins. This tells you how far away from the edge of the page you want to start your printing. This here is your page orientation, so you've got portrait or landscape. Down here is our window where we can change things and export things. So this here is an arrow that can take you back to that first page if you ever want to go back there. And click Next. This here will save what's to be printed as a screenshot, and it will save it to the clipboard. This here we can click on to save a bitmap of our printing. Okay, I'm going to have to go back into the print dialog because I closed that. Okay, so go back. Okay, now this is our single spanner. So the single spanner alters settings for the one print mode we're doing. So because we're doing shaping as X's, you've got your, and then you've got your knit leader, all that sort of stuff under it. But the single spanner only changes settings for that specific that specific print option. Okay, so it can. We've got all these settings. I hardly ever change these, and when I do, it's just trying to troubleshoot troubleshoot something. We're going to click OK, and we're going to go to our double spanner tool. Now this double spanner tool changes the information for all garments. So your company name will be printed at the top of all your prints. You've got the options to choose what we want to print, so we can do company name, pattern identifier. Pattern identifier will help you identify what the pattern was saved as. You've got format, you've got date, you've got time. Here is Japanese notation. Now, I said we'd touch on this in another dedicated tutorial because it really needs its own tutorial, but this here, you can change the formatting of the Japanese notation. Here you can set the pixels for the clipboard or bitmap file. So that's for down here when we clicked on the save to clipboard or bitmap. And we're going to click OK. This here is our help tool, so we can have a look at the inbuilt help for print options. As you can see, there's a bit there. It can be confusing, but I will go through more of this later on. Okay, now, once we've got all our settings set up and we're ready to print, I always click preview to see if it's going to work. Now, as you can see, each individual stitch in this stitch pattern, stitch print setup is marked as an X. So if you print this, you can just follow the X's. So every X is a stitch, and you can just follow this along row by row. Okay, now it's going to print several pages because it's printing at real size. Okay. I'm going to click close. We can actually click this little doohickey here, the single spanner, and we can actually make it a percentage of actual size. So if we make this 25% and click OK, then click preview again, it's fit the garment down to 25%, and as you can see, the X's are still there. So when this is printed as a PDF, you can obviously zoom in, but doing it this size would be pretty hard to see, but I just do that so I can view the whole garment piece. Click close, and so when you're ready to print, you can click print. You can select your printer. I use an MG5700 printer, and then you can click OK, and it'll spit it out of the printer. So I'm not going to explain this bit again because it's going to be the same for all the print methods. So click cancel because I don't want to print. And this little red X will close the dialog and take you back to your pattern drafting window, original pattern drafting. So I'm going to click File, Print again, click No. Now, text summary, as I said, is generally only used for standard garment styling. So we'll click Next. We'll click on the single spanner for this one, and it'll give us our options for this window. I don't use this very often unless I need a basic sweater pattern that's the same as the styling in the original pattern drafting. Usually I just export the original pattern, the standard garments into original pattern drafting and edit them to suit what I want there. So we're just going to click OK. And as you can see, it's the same. We click preview. Now, here you go. There's your general instructions from this print mode. So it's going to give you the garment type, sleeve type, neck style. See, some of it's been saved because we edited the original garment. So we made the garment in, gotta start again, I'm getting confused. We originally made the garment in standard pattern drafting, and then we moved it to original pattern drafting. Because it was originally made in standard garment, it will merge some of its original information here, but you'll lose the information like the welt and that, because the welt doesn't get carried across. We made our own manual welt. Okay, we're going to click close here. Click our back arrow and go to the next one. So knit leader, we'll click next. We can click our little single. Okay, so it's going to show us if the garment is symmetrical, it can print the right half only. You can invert the garment and click OK. So now we'll preview this and we'll see that it's got our ready for our knit leader. So you'd print these pages out and stick them together, and then you can just stick it onto the knit leader sheet. Okay, click close, we'll go back. It's the exact same for Knit Radar, so I'm not going to show you that one as well. Garment outline, we can click next. Click on our little spanner to change settings, and you can set it to any size you want. So you can go % of actual size, or you can fit it to the page, you can invert it left or right, and you can include markers. We haven't talked about markers yet, but we will later. Click OK, click preview, and as you can see, this just prints the outline of our garment. Okay? These are really good for, you can export these to the clipboard and you can use these as schematics if you're publishing a pattern, because it saves a step having to go to Inkscape or Illustrator or something like that. We can have a look at garment notation. Click next. Preview. Oops, close. Go back. Garment notation. Next. Check the settings here. As you can see, it's the same settings as the last one, except the print notations in straight columns, which will line up your notation. So we'll click preview, and as you can see, this puts in instructions on how to knit. So this says row 0, and then it says row 1, and then it indicates what you got to do. But I'm not going to go into that now. As I've said, I'll do that in a separate tutorial on its own. Go back. Garment text, okay, next. This is one I really want to show you. Click. And as you can see, it will do that. Sorry about that, I just got a message and the computer went bing. I've turned it down as people have asked, so hopefully it doesn't cause a problem. Click. Oh, and line length enables you to shorten your rows if you want to. I never bother. So here you go, it's going to give us knitting instructions. So as you can see, it says cast on, and it's going to give you shaping just like a regular hand knit pattern. Okay, close. Go back, go to the next one. Key to symbols. This is if you're using garment symbols. As we are not using symbols in this, there will be nothing to print. Yarn calculation. Now this is a cool one. So we click next. We click this little setting, single spanner for the settings. Now this is going to ask us to measure a swatch. So if you made your 40 by 60 swatch without waste yarn, you can just weigh that and say, oh, okay, that weighed 26 grams. And in the units, we can put grams. And we'll click OK. And then when we preview it, it's going to tell us for our garment piece, well, all pieces here, it's going to tell us that for this sweater and this size, in light blue yarn, we'll knit. The question is because of the welt, because it's a different colour. But the total, we will need 1.36 kilograms of yarn to knit this sweater. This is a really cool thing. I love this, especially if you're designing patterns. But you need to estimate a little bit more, of course. So we're going to click back. Now we've got garment picture, which if we click next, click this, is the same as the original one we did, the same as the summary. Click preview, and as you can see, you remember in the first tutorial, the third tutorial, we integrated the stitch pattern. So now we can see the garment picture, which integrates the stitch pattern onto the garment. See that? Isn't that cool? So you can print that, and you can include that if you're designing patterns. You can include this in your pattern instructions, so then people can actually see what it's supposed to turn out like, rather than just a photo. Alright, I'm going to click close. Go back. Garment symbols. There's no symbols in this garment. And integrated changes. We can click next and preview. So this, I honestly don't know what this does. I never use it. One day I will look up in the manual how to use it, but I haven't yet, so I can't talk about that. Okay, so now that we've been through all that, I think that will do it for this tutorial. You've seen how we can go in and print our garment shaping instructions. If you've got any questions, you can ask them down below under the video, or you can send me a private message on YouTube. If you have things that you want to see me make, you can send me comments on YouTube and I will try and make the tutorials happen for you. Thanks for watching, and if you want to subscribe, you will see updates of all my new videos. Thanks for watching.